Any one of us. Signature.
I don't think it matters who. I don't know why. I think it went to me because I do the shellfish.
Yeah.
There.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, the minutes aren't ready.
Yeah, I saw that. I went through them real quick just to make sure.
Trying to condense it into a manageable read.
That door needs to stay open.
Doesn't need to stay open as long as.
Is it unlocked?
I believe so.
As long as Q doesn't line up out there.
Is it unlocked? Oh, yeah, it is. Okay.
Really.
Hey, Rich is here, so I've got 5:30 we can start the meeting. I'll call a select board meeting to order at 5:30. If everybody would stand and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Adjustments to the agenda. We do want to add custodial services to the end.
Yeah, if we have time for it.
Okay.
And Penny has a donation to the library, but I think she might be.
Yeah. And John, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Sue?
No.
Haven't reviews, so we'll go to public comment. If there's anybody who has any public comment for items that are not already on the agenda. Just so you know, John, we do have a room full. I think I only see about 4 empty seats. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 people in the gallery, but nobody seems to be interested in making public comment. So we'll go to old business. Update the revaluation costs. And
Can I ask a question? With the, I didn't get minutes. Were they not distributed? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
If you want to update us on the appraisal funds,
I reached out to. What was the one that started with A that we didn't know when they were going to be able to. Right, and I called and left messages and nobody's called me back.
Okay. I still think 2027 ought to be our target year for that.
Did we find out that Warren did theirs in-house?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay,
Review the town meeting warrant. I don't know if we want to take any action on it, because.
I have a couple comments.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, I did touch base with Kristen on the ATV ordinance. She's gonna get back to us. She feels that it really is probably more effective, under a trespass, law as opposed to, land use. Although she was gonna think about that. She said it probably could fall under either, but she just thought a trespass would be easier for like inland fisheries and wildlife to enforce it, because they really have no authority to enforce our land use ordinances, for example. But so she's going to give us some language on the enforcement issue. And my other comment was, well, I know what it was. I just want to make sure on the ATV ordinance that because we really haven't discussed this, but I didn't hear any opposition to it. I wrote it as prohibiting them on all town property, period. And I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. Jeff and Sue were aware of that and were okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I just didn't want anybody being surprised after.
No,
Because that's actually where the worst damage is on the town property. I mean, it's all town property now, but what was the town property prior to the Smith and Klein conveyance to us? The worst damage is definitely on that property. Those were my only two comments. I really haven't had a chance to look at the numbers, but I understand from Terry, they're kind of placeholders at this point anyways.
True, and I think we will discuss that a little bit near the end of the meeting. When do we need to officially approve this draft?
do you remember when it has to be into the printer here? It's,
No.
yeah, beginning of May,
Okay.
So there's time.
We've got some
we've got time, yes.
Good.
So can I ask one other question? Are we gonna follow the practice of the last couple of years and label it a draft in the town report? And then that way we can really amend it up to, I mean, not amend it, but we can leave it open until about 7 or realistically 10 days before the town meeting. Is that the thinking?
Yeah, and now we'll need to look at that. It's actually gonna be 10 days, 7 to 10 days prior to the election, right?
Right,
Right.
right,
That's the official start of the town
Right.
meeting.
right. Yeah, but I think that's worked well.
Yeah, oh, I agree. I agree.
Giving us a little flexibility.
Okay. New business. Consider a request to place an article in the town meeting warrant to ask the town to preserve the Guilford Butler building for some future use to be determined. And who is to speak on that? Go ahead.
Mind if I come up here?
Oh, absolutely.
Can I
Hey.
ask who's speaking?
She's getting ready to introduce herself.
Okay,
Lynn Tootill, and it's spelled Tootill. I always have to do that because they can't figure it out. And first of all, I won't take much of your time because I know you're all very busy, as we all are. And I would like to thank you for all that you do in the best interest of the people of South Thomas. And one of the responsibilities of the Selectboard shall include the protection of life and property. I've collected over 200 signatures from residents of Maine in hopes that the people of South Thomaston will see the value in saving the Guilford Butler building. The structural conditions assessment of the former Guilford Butler School, prepared by Gottlieb and Dorsey in 2019, stated, based on our observations, assessment, and review of the main uniform building and energy code, the existing structure appears to be structurally sound. There are many uses for this building in South Thomaston. It appears that the town office is in need of more space. The fire department is busting at the seams. We have become such a throwaway society for reasons like, I don't like the looks of this building, get rid of it. This is no longer in style, it's an eyesore, etc. So all I'm asking is, please do not let the structurally sound building be thrown away. Thank you for your time. I have signatures.
Did you do up a potential warrant, a draft warrant article?
No. Was that needed?
Were you intending to do one?
It can be done, yes.
That's your intent, though, is that you want
Yes.
an article on the,
Okay. So just so that everybody understands, the select board moves at the guidance of the town through the town meeting. So several years in a row now, the town meeting has voted to direct the select board to move forward with eventually tearing down the building and erecting a new library community center. And we've been marching in that direction. They also allowed us to move the library into the existing building temporarily. But right now, our guidance from the town is that the building eventually gets torn down.
I'm sorry, but
Well,
I have not
hold on,
found.
let me speak. Okay. So I just want you and everybody else to understand that the only way the select board is going to make any action away from what the town meeting has dictated to us is the town has to vote on it. So it has to come to the town either through a special town meeting or at the annual town meeting, which is already scheduled. Either way it goes, you have to have an article for the town to consider for them to vote on. And you have to do some public outreach and informational meetings prior to that happening. There are two ways for an article to be placed on the warrant. The first is that the select board says, we think that's a good idea. And usually it's from things the select board initiates and puts it on the warrant. The other is through a town petition. So you could go out with the warrant and get town to sign a certain number of people. I don't even know what the number is.
88.
88. And what's the time period on that? Would it have to be in?
Before we post those.
Before you. Yeah. So those are the two ways.
So what is the time period for the posting of the warrant?
Probably April, mid-April.
Yeah,
And excuse me for my ignorance, but I could not find what the townspeople voted on. All I could find was that they voted to start a committee. But I never
That was the
actually,
last vote. There
That
was
was-
a vote 2 years ago.
this one was 2019, well, yeah, 2021.
No, so now I'm really confused at what you're saying.
Well, it was in the paper, I have this one, June 16th, 2021, where the town voted to form a committee.
I
You want to see it?
don't need to see it.
So what I haven't been able to find is, when did the town vote to tear the building down?
The year before last, they voted to, in accordance with the committee that had been formed several years prior to that.
2018.
I don't want to go into.
Right, that's okay.
Okay. There was a committee that was formed to take a look at the alternatives for the building.
Mhm.
So that it was gonna be handed over by the school system so there was a committee formed and out of that committee, the recommendation was to tear the building down and build a new one.
So who made the recommendation
That committee, and they made that recommendation to the town
based on?
on their 2-year work. And they made that recommendation to the town. The town supported the committee's conclusion.
The town meaning the people
The
of
select,
the select
the town at the town meeting voted,
20.
I don't know, 2021, 2022.
I can't find.
I-
Should
not
be on there to me,
Well,
right?
it's Article 10 on the June 15th, 2021 town meeting.
2021.
Article 10.
The amendment was made to the Article 10.
No, Article 10 was to direct the select board to move forward with the efforts to tear down the building and build a new building.
I can't find that wording in.
It doesn't actually say tear down the building. It says to
In a
accept the
word.
recommendation of the Guilford Butler's Future Committee, which was to tear down the building if a new building could be fundraised for and built. So I think there was actually a motion made on the floor of the town meeting, if you folks recall, to tear it down at that point, and that was ruled out of order by the moderator. So in my mind, the town has never voted to specifically tear down the building, which is what bothers me about some of these letters. They seem like that's the end of the plan. The plan, in my mind, was to fundraise and construct a new building, and then if and when that happened, then tear down the building in accordance with the Guilford Butler recommendation. That's how I view it personally.
Yes, I agree with that.
I mean, I don't think there was ever a sense to tear down the building if we could not accomplish the task of fundraising and constructing a new building, at least in my mind.
Right, which I think is congruent with following the recommendations of the Futures Committee.
Yes, I agree.
And that wording is what was in there, which was, if you can, raise the money
Correct.
to tear it down and build a new one. That was the recommendation from that committee, and that wording to follow the recommendation of the committee is in the warrant article.
I just didn't see that it was to tear it down. To me, it's a perfectly structurally sound building that has many uses here in this town.
But the other side of it is, and this is what the facilities committee came up with. You say it's a perfectly usable building, but it's not for 5 years from now or 10 years from now, or even 15 years from now.
How can you say that?
Because there was an evaluation done of the roof structure it definitely doesn't have 80 years of life left in the roof. There are issues with the heating system, definitely doesn't have 80 years worth of heating system capability. One of those two things.
Any new building.
I'm not here to argue with you, I'm just stating the fact.
But you're saying things that
Okay,
so I shouldn't say.
here's what you need to do.
Okay,
You either need to tell me now if you're gonna do a petition,
we are
or,
ready to go forward.
well, I mean, the other option is you can ask the select board to sponsor it. So you don't have to do a petition.
To sponsor.
The article
The
to
article.
vote before the town.
This is all new to me, I'm just telling you, so.
Yeah.
And it seems like the more I know, the less I know, so.
But here's the thing. I'm not gonna agree to put something on, I'm not speaking for the board now. To put something, an article on the town meeting warrant that I haven't seen.
Okay,
And
That's
the
fair.
three of us are not in the position to draft a warrant article that is currently contrary to our marching directions from the town.
Totally understandable.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm all new to this and
So you
So
have
I
two
need-
choices.
direction.
You need to write an article that you
Okay.
intend to put before the town. You either need to come back to the select board with that article
Okay,
for us to decide whether or not we are going to sponsor it. And if we do, then you don't need the petition.
okay.
But because of the timing on this, by the time we tell you we're not gonna do it,
Well, you have 60 days, is that correct? After you get the warrant? What?
60 days to respond to the petition.
Oh,
right,
60 days to
if you do
respond
a
to the
petition, yeah, you got some information on this, don't you?
I do.
Okay, yeah, all right, so that's from when you give us the petition.
Okay,
We have 60 days to move on.
and the next town meeting is in June.
Correct.
Got that right?
What is- Well, can I ask, what is the date on the first, we're doing a bifurcated town meeting this year. Can I ask what the first date is? I don't have the warrant right, the draft warrant right in front of me.
June 11th.
Yeah, June 11th.
So, I would, couple of points if I could, I would think that if we're gonna put a draft warrant in the town report, we could deal with this as late as 10, 12 days before June 11th. I think, I mean, I don't think there's any requirement like a zoning ordinance that we hold a public hearing. I think it would be nice to, but it could be as late as that. I also want to point out that if we do receive a petition, the selectmen could also put on a competing article if it chose to. And that may be something that we want to consider depending on what the article says. And the other thing is, the petition has to be lawful. I assume it would be, but I mean, the article that's in the petition has to be lawful. That's the only way that the select board cannot put it on. But I would strongly urge, in the interest of fairness, that if we are going to get a petition, that we try to put it on the annual town meeting and not a special town meeting. It strikes me as inherently unfair that this matter has sort of been voted on twice at very well-attended annual town meetings. And to put it on a special town meeting, for example, in July, when 20 people show up, as opposed to 100 people voting on this, strikes me as just not fair. And so I would urge, if we are going to get a petition, that the folks that are considering marshaling a petition do it quickly. I mean, I'm not saying imprudently, but do it quickly so we could get it on this annual town meeting. And I agree with you, Jeff. I'm not in favor of the select board sponsoring an article. I think in essence, we've had 2 votes on this. I know the second vote was not on point exactly, but it was to create the auxiliary nonprofit corporation that would assist in supporting and fundraising for a new building. And it strikes me, if the town wasn't interested, if they had lost interest after Article 10 passed in constructing a new building, they would have voted that article down, and they didn't. So I think in some ways, this has already been voted on twice at 2 well-attended annual town meetings. So I have no interest personally in having the select board sponsor an article. Which is not to say that I wouldn't have an interest in sponsoring a competing article, depending on what the petition says. But as you say, it's hard to make any judgments if you don't have the article in front of you to read. So, but anyways, those are my comments.
I think he summarized it pretty well.
Mhm.
So I think where you are is, your best bet is to start a petition with a drafted, you have to have the drafted
Mhm.
article, for 88 people to sign.
Okay,
And then bring that back to us in time to get it on the warrant prior to the town meeting.
and that would be in June, the town meeting. When do we have to get it back to you?
Well, I'd say by the 1st of June.
1st of June.
At the latest.
at the latest, yeah.
Yeah. And I want to make a small correction. It isn't 80 people, it's 80 South Thomaston registered voters.
Yes.
88.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry, 88, but it's not 88 people.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other comments? Any?
I wanted to know if the Selectboard was sponsoring an article proposed by an auxiliary board member to turn the property over to the auxiliary board as come to our attention.
I couldn't hear the question.
She's asking if we're considering an article from the auxiliary board to turn the property over to the auxiliary board. Do you know anything about that? I don't know anything about that.
No, never even heard of that idea.
And John's the president of the auxiliary board.
I would like to ask John if that was not proposed at a meeting of the auxiliary board.
One member made some comments to that effect and, to my mind, didn't get any traction at all. As a matter of fact, I spoke adamantly against that idea. I wouldn't call it a proposal. I would say it was one member's comments. I think that's a better way to frame it. But it didn't seem to get any traction whatsoever, so I wouldn't call it a proposal by any means. One individual spoke that might be a good idea at one meeting. I don't recall which one.
Rich?
Yeah, Rich Norman from Stelton Road. I got a question. I think, Jeff, you mentioned that the select board, it's up to them to decide after, if they get a petition of 88 signed voters, and they bring that petition to the select board, it's the select board's then decision to decide whether it becomes a warrant on our town meeting.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
No.
If they do it by petition, the only vote that the select board has is it a legal article? In other words, is it something, are they asking the town to vote on something that is legal? I mean, some people could get together and put a petition together that says, we're gonna have trades, we're gonna trade in prostitution in the town. Okay, so we would not put that on, on the warrant because it's not a legal activity that it's asking the town to vote on. So it has to be a legal decision for the town. The town has to be able to make it.
And my second question is, I mean, the select board is made up of 3 people, and one of the select board is chairman of this committee. All right, so clearly, I think there's a conflict of interest as being the chairman of that committee. All right, so I don't know how the select board is gonna vote. If John will be required to recuse himself, all right, because of I don't know. And I just posed the question because apparently this is becoming a hot issue right now. And I think we need to get it figured out sooner than later. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't want to speak for John, but his position on the auxiliary is completely independent upon a decision as to whether or not to tear down the town, to tear down the building. And we've already checked with legal, and there is no conflict in the duties currently. And usually, mostly the conflicts arise from when there's money involved. And in this case, John's not getting paid anything either way.
Well, there's certainly money, because of the cost of everything. I think, I mean.
But that would mean that none of us could vote on it. So
I just
okay.
question if that's all. Thank you.
Well, I need to address that. This has come up before, and again, in order for me to be, first of all, I didn't ask to be on this committee. I didn't really want to be on this, and it's not a committee, it's a board of directors of a nonprofit corporation. I didn't want to be on the committee. I didn't ask to be. I was the only one of the 3 that volunteered, and that after the other 2 declined. and the bylaws required that a member of the select board be on this committee for reasons I won't go into this point, but it really upsets me when people start throwing around conflict of interest. That means that I have the only way I have a conflict of interest is I have some sort of pecuniary interest in this, and I do not. So I wish, Rich in particular, you brought it up twice, you would stop saying that about me. Because I do not have a conflict of interest. I have no pecuniary interest in this whatsoever.
Yes. Can't see who it is. Oh, you have a mask on.
And it's dark back there.
I just wanted to make a comment about the signatures that been brought forward. John has been saying multiple times in multiple meetings about people showing up to support the Guilford Butler School. And people, a lot of those people aren't gonna do it, but they were willing to sign the petition. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything before we move to the next item? So you're comfortable, you know what you need to do?
Thank you.
And what we need from you? Yeah, okay, thank you. Discuss the town report cover.
We did this several years ago.
Yeah.
Put out on the webpage and through email requesting pictures for the cover photos. And we did it, I think the first year I came back, and we got some really nice ones.
Right.
Unless someone has a wonderful idea that they'd like to share.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
I make a motion, we direct the town administrator to undertake what she's proposing.
I'll second that.
You can delegate it.
There you go,
I'm
Hannah.
looking at her across the table.
I know, I'm avoiding eye contact.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, John,
John, I.
Sue, I.
Jeff, I. 3-0, it carries. Discussion on budget and budget revenues, and I didn't see the one, did you put something, out today, right? Did it echo what I had?
Yes, I actually changed, in the minutes, when we talked about the town landing budget.
Yeah.
We were putting $2,000 in for reserve, but then we went back to the town landing budget and added stuff. So the budget you had $2,000. I changed it to what you had because the town landing budget is 5,000 something, and it's based on.
But other than that, it's.
Yeah, all our numbers matched except for one. You had a 1 and I had a 0, but your number it's the rounding that Excel does sometimes. So I just added $1.
Okay. So just so you know, what I drafted up was I threw in enough surplus to get us to a 0 increase, assuming there's only a modest increase in the school budget, and assuming that our increase in the valuation for the town is a small amount, the amount that you had calculated as the overage that you did for the LD1. So that puts $198,000 into surplus, and I think 67 is a given because that's the amount we should be getting back from the grant. So that money is spent, but then we get it back. So I added that and I included that. So we're only adding 131,000. And we can either do that in the town warrant with the budget, or we can hold some of it to be done when we set the mill rate. That's the good news, is that I really think that we have created a budget that could have 0 increase to the townsfolk in the mill rate. Having said that, for those of us who did not get an increase in last year's taxes, you will see that increase in this year's taxes. Because the state, yeah,
And yours.
that's right. 'Cause so the state has done away with that program, so it stops. So now you're back to what you didn't have to pay last year is now included in this. So if we don't come up with close to a zero, then everybody's gonna be seeing a significant increase, so. This still hasn't gone to the budget committee, and should be doing that in April. Yeah, yes, sir.
Do you, revenues on this as well as the second, do you have a up to date? How are we tracking excise, ambulance and state reimbursement?
Ambulance has stayed pretty much steady. State reimbursement is gonna go down significantly. And I finally figured that out, why we got so much this year from the state. It's because they base it on your taxes for the previous year. And the previous year was an 18-month. Therefore, the state revenues were based on an 18-month instead of a 12-month. So we had a 1-year significant increase in state revenue. We're not gonna see that this year. We're gonna go back to the normal amounts for this year. But everything else, excise taxes, everything else is up. And so what we've got in here right now, we'll show it to the budget committee come that time, is our best guess on what it's gonna be for next year. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, so they forecast the revenue twice a year. How are we, how are they doing it, making that commitment? If I could loosely call it a commitment.
You mean the state?
Yeah.
Yeah, they,
John's always been skeptical.
well, he was skeptical of that last one because, and I was too, so we didn't, when we set the budget, we did not include all of that in our budget line. I don't think, no.
I don't think.
No, I think we included all of
Did we? We, somewhere we did not include it all. Because it was soft, but I think now that we've figured out why it was an anomaly, because it was 18 months instead of 12 months. And they have made that forecast for this coming year. Yep. Any other questions?
I'm always skeptical because I remember the days when all of a sudden the state had a budget shortfall and where did they go? They cut school aid and revenue sharing for the most part rather than their own programs. So skepticism is sort of built in based on my experience over the past 30 years. But I think that some of our other excise tax just this year seems incredibly strong.
Yep.
Again, it always amazes me. But I am a little concerned. The ambulance revenue seems a little bit off on trajectory, unless there's something there that isn't linear, that I'm not aware of. But other than that, I tend to agree with you, Jeff. Everything looks pretty good. I mean, homestead, all the significant ones. I'm not talking about some of the little, snowmobile registration, $324 versus $350. I'm not talking about those, but anyways. So.
Yeah, and my best guess on the surplus is we're gonna add about 300,000 to our surplus this year, which is not insignificant. And is pretty much in line what we've been traditionally doing. I mean, and part of that is because of our skepticism. So we underestimate what we think the revenues are gonna be, and we overestimate what the costs are gonna be. And that means that your budget comes in below, which means that you add revenue, you add money to your coffers that you didn't have to do. So we'll go through that. surplus exercise too.
I would ask that we remember one thing, when we thought that the ARP funds were gonna be clawed back, because there was a lot of talk about that in Washington, we got the last of the funds, I don't have the number in front of me, out the door and just paid for, we needed some large bill to pay, and we paid for paving. And I think our intent at that time was we still had some things earmarked to be paid with that ARP funds that hadn't come due. So in my mind, our surplus is overstated by that amount. Now, I don't think that was a huge number, but it was in the thousands, or if I recall, several thousand, not 100,000, but I would just remind us of that.
Yes, I agree, and I did not take that into account when I came up with my additional surplus.
Yeah, Terry, do you remember what that number was? For some reason, I want to say 40,000.
I was gonna say 52, but.
Okay.
That's because that one's so random, it's gotta be more accurate.
Well, if we could dig that number out,
Yep,
I think that would be helpful when we go into the budget committee, because I think, we had certain things, for lack of a better word, earmarked. Not that we had formally voted on them per se, but and I don't even recall what they were at this point. And I don't even want to get into that discussion tonight, but I think it's important to remember that.
And the other thing that this kind of leads me to talking a little bit about is what our mill rate is. One side of it is revenue and costs, but the other side of it is what the value of the town, overall value of the town is. So that's individual valuations on properties. And we increased it last year by 15%. I would be surprised if we don't have to do it again this year by 15%. And so one of the numbers I'm running is, if it goes up by another 15%, that you'll see, you would probably feel like you're getting a deal, because your mill rate will drop significantly again. But the reality is, it doesn't make any difference on how much money you put in, because how much money the mill rate set pulls out is based on how much we have to spend. So it's a zero-sum game. It's not making any more money for the town. But having said that, I think we're going to be able to do a patch again this year, like we did last year, to keep us in line with the state requirements. Or we may not. We may just not do that. And the impact on that is going to be on those programs like veterans and tree growth, I think, and what's the other one?
Homestead. That's a big one.
Yeah, and homestead. So instead of getting the 100% of the credit that you would get normally, you'll see a percentage of that, like 15% less, as a result of that. Which is the main reason we did last year, and to keep us up with the state, so the state doesn't get cross-eyed with us. But we talked earlier about the having a reeval. The reason we're talking about that is because if this property is overvalued and this property is undervalued, which currently isn't the state that we know of, then you have to do a reeval to bring those properties back in line. If everybody is undervalued or overvalued, then you can make an adjustment to everybody. But if we start getting a separation, a quality indication that we're not treating everybody the same, then we have to do a reval. We haven't had one in for quite a while, and that's going to cost us a pretty good money. Yes, sir.
I like the 2027 idea, because I think there's every indication that this housing market is going to correct between now and then, and that will make the eval aid, which there will be, less paid.
Yes, yeah, I agree. That's another reason I wanted to wait. And the other reason, to be frank, is I think last time we did a reeval, we did not do a very good job of informing the town, getting them ready for the reeval and what it really meant. There was some opposition because I just don't think we did a good job of explaining what it really was. So now this gives us 5 years, or no, 3 years to set the stage for it, as well as raise enough money over the next 3 years to pay for it. So.
But I
Yes,
have
sir.
just a question. Could you tell me who was speaking?
Oh, that was Walter.
Oh, Walter, didn't sound like him.
He said he has a cold, but he's not wearing a mask.
But I wanted to reinforce your point, Jeff, that, and I've said this many times, as long as everybody is treated equally unfairly,
Right.
I'm much more concerned about equity between different types of property than I am about the overall valuation. I just don't want to see one class of property that, say, is on average at 80% and another class of property that's valued at 110% or 120%. That's where I get concerned and I wanted to reinforce what you said there. I think that's the issue of fairness. And so I just wanted to reinforce that.
Thank you. All right, anything else on budget revenues and where we're heading? So there's no surprises. All right, appoint ballot clerks for the June 11th, 2024 election.
I make a motion, we appoint Penny Allies, Sandra Manahan, Heather Baines, Michelle Ames, and Denise Wu.
Then you have to spell it.
RZEZNIKIEWICZ. I'm not sure I've ever seen a word with 3 Z's in it, but
I win a Scrabble.
as ballot clerks for the election.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, John?
John, I.
Sue, I.
Jeff, I. 3-0 carries. And what do we, the custodial services?
Yes. As you know, we lost our cleaner. Couldn't do it anymore, so Tanner and I have been filling in, taking turns cleaning. Brenda Calderwood came in today and heard me looking for someone, and she is willing to clean for 2 hours a week. But she does ask for $30. Currently, I think we pay around 20.
Have we advertised for this job?
Only word of mouth.
Yeah. And I know when we've advertised in the past, I think we've had like 0 applicants. But I don't have a clue whether $30 an hour is a reasonable rate for cleaning, but I suspect it is.
It's a good deal. Yeah.
Huh?
It's $30 is good.
Yeah.
As Hannah said, she did it at 20, and I said I do it for nothing. So.
Well, Terry, are you recommending we do this?
I'm recommending we find somebody, and I don't think that for 2 hours a week, we're gonna have a whole lot of people knocking on our door.
Brenda does a good job.
She does the school, right?
She doesn't anymore, but she did. She worked for a private company now. Yeah.
For the library.
Yeah.
Well, I think Hannah's gonna have her hands full as our new town administrator come June, and I don't think this is a great place for her to be spending her time. So I'll make a motion that we hire Brenda Calderwood at the rate she's requesting of $30 an hour for 2 hours a week.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, John?
John, I.
Sue, I.
Jeff, I. 3-0, it carries.
Hannah, I.
Okay, is there anything else? Monthly reports, oh, donation.
Honey, I don't have the name of the person.
It's from the CEO, the nonprofit that meets monthly, is the philanthropic education organization. And they have given us an annual donation. It will be a year, and that is $200. And I do have a building use form on file for them. They think they have insurance and they will get me that information also. And I was wondering, when I have someone come in that does this and they hand me a $10 bill, and back go into petty cash, does it go into donations? Where does that money go?
This is not something you're charging them,
No, they're nonprofit.
right?
So they.
So it's a tip.
This is a donation to the library.
Yeah, personally, I just leave that to your discretion.
But I'm talking about when we do have someone that is going to be paying the $10 per use.
Oh,
Oh.
that goes to Terry.
Yeah, I
You'll
think
have-
so, because the whole purpose of that was to make sure we weren't violating the law, and you know, MMA indicate we had to charge for someone. So I agree with you. I agree. I agree with you, Jeff.
The building, okay, the building rental account, there's an account that's set up for it.
I have been house back on both for you.
Thank you. Actually, pretty soon you're gonna start at the hand.
So do I hear a motion to accept a $200 donation from PEO?
So moved.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, John,
John, I.
Sue,
Sue, I.
Jeff, I, 3-0, carries. Anything else I'm missing?
Can we review meetings again? Sorry.
There's a public meeting next Thursday at 5:30 here on ordinance review stuff for changes to the land use ordinance primarily.
Okay, that's not a select board meeting.
Correct.
Okay,
The ordinance review committee and the planning board will be at that. And the next meeting is the 4th of April at 3 o'clock.
and that's primarily to deal with mowing bids because our current mowing contractor backed out at the last moment, correct?
Correct. Then our next one is
Budget committee.
the budget committee, which is, I thought it was the 9th, 10th, and 11th, right?
Yeah.
At 4
Yeah.
o'clock.
And the 15th if needed.
And the 15th is a backup. And then we have a select board meeting on April 23rd.
Okay, is that all we have scheduled?
That is all we have currently.
I thought we had one deeper in April. But maybe no, the 23rd is pretty deep.
Yeah, the 23rd is. And right now, without anything else jumping up, the 14th and the 28th would be our normal select board meetings in May. Hey, anything else? Last chance.
I just, since we're running early here, I would just like to, and since we have a fairly good crowd in the audience, if we still do, perhaps we don't.
Half of them have left, but the other half are still.
I would just like to publicly acknowledge the effort that Sandra Wallace has put into this Land for Maine Futures grant to hopefully recoup the entire amount of money that we spent on purchasing the Smith and Klein property, $67,000. She has spent a lot, and Kathleen Lurim has helped her as well, but she has spent a lot of time with this. The application that she's drafted to them, I think, is excellent. And I just think she deserves public acknowledgement for the effort that she's put in. That's not saying we're going to get it, but it certainly wouldn't, if we don't get it, it won't be for lack of her effort. And I feel really great about it because when we did this, we said to the town in the warrant article and at the town meeting that we were going to try to recoup this money, or at least some of it, with donations and grants, and she's really lived up to that, and by trying to secure this grant. And I'm very impressed, and I really think she deserves a public acknowledgement, along with Catherine, who's helped her a lot. So that's all.
I agree, John.
I do as well.
Yeah, and not just from the effort. I mean, the quality of the input of the application. And I've seen a lot of applications for grants, and this was a step above, I think, in my mind. It was pretty impressive. I don't know how much is her authorship or Catherine's, but both of you did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to say we got tremendous help in the last 2 days from Leticia Van Buren of the county map, emergency. She has helped us. We spent, several hours an hour this morning, an hour this afternoon, sitting with her and getting the maps we wanted. And she has been tremendously helpful. I mean, that saved me tens of hours.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And if I underplayed Catherine's role in this, I apologize to Catherine. It's just that I've been communicating with Sandra, so the face of it to me has been more Sandra, but if I have no idea, maybe Catherine's done 90% of the work. But
No, Sandra writes, she's the precision writer. I was the lyrical one about description of the land and pictures and stuff.
Good combination.
Yes.
All right.
So we are the odd couple. We love one another, but we bicker all the time.
All right, one more time. Last chance. And without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.